Hey everybody, welcome back to the Gamer's Grimoire, and this is going to be something a little bit different. There we go. So, I'm going to be doing a little short few videos, including the Dark Souls, kind of series that we've got going on, talking about the good and the bad of Dark Souls 2. I'm going to be doing a few more World of Warcraft videos, with Classic kind of around the corner, as well as 8.2 coming out probably in mid-June. I figured I'd do some videos on the class I play, as well as the spec I play for it. Also to get people kind of to know that I'm still working on the introspective video, which might actually push back, honestly, to the 15th anniversary, given that the game will now be one more year, closer. If not, I'll do something kind of close to that time. So, the class I've played actually in WoW since the very beginning. I've played this character, this exact character, for 14 years now. I've played Enhancement since Vanilla, and I'm going to be showing Mythic rotation, as well as what you should look for the class. Currently, my stat weights are 23% haste, 23% crit, with 32% mastery, as well as nearly 5% versatility. What you want to look for, you've got multiple build paths with them, depending on the gear you have. The one I'm currently using is Hot Hand plus Totem Mastery and Hailstorm. The reason for this is, once you have multiple of this specific Azerite trait, Primal Primer, it kind of just elevates your damage and adds a stronger rotation to your build, plus with a little bit more RNG. The problem with this class is incredibly RNG dependent. It's been that way since Vanilla, so some things don't change. I will admit, this is probably the most stagnated variant of this class that we've ever received in the game. You have very little to do. So, let's go over the rotation. So, you're going to start off literally before any fight with your Totem Mastery ready. For a boss fight, you'll pre-pop your Earth Elemental to kind of utilize it, because some fights will go long, you'll get multiple Earth Elementals. It does do a little bit of damage, so might as well use it. So, you're going to actually open with Rockbiter into Flametongue, into Frostbrand, then you should probably pop your Wolves. So, let's do just that. And we'll go over the rest of the Azerite traits in a moment. And then you can pop Wolves. And we should be adding in Lava Lashes now as well. And we'll talk about all that in a second after this first little bit of a rotation. One thing you will be noticing, I'm actually a clicker, so sorry if anyone's triggered. I've been this way since Vanilla. My bards in Vanilla will look way different than they are now, so just bear that in mind. Alright. So, Enhancement is not the best DPS in the game, because we are incredibly RNG dependent. You will need a lot of stat alignment to kind of get you there, as well as very specific items, namely your trinket slots. There are a lot of terrible trinkets in this game, and the ones that are coveted really are Harlan's Loaded Dice, which you can get from doing Freehold Mythics, as well as possibly from your weekly cash from doing, well, Mythics. Lustrous Golden Plumage is fine. It is not ideal, but it is fine. It's like the 5th best trinket. The trinkets you do want to look for outside of that, apparently one of the best ones would be, not this one, would be Lurker's Insidious Gift on either Heroic or Mythic. It just gives a lot of mastery for what you get. It just boosts the damage of Lava Lash. It's primarily for this build. If you're going another build, and we'll just swap out helmets because it'll kind of facilitate it better. This helmet is fine. It facilitates a different build, but I will go over a trait that kind of warrants it differently. So, ideally, you would not have Lightning Conduit, but you would still have Ancestral Resonance. This will allow you to have an increased duration on your Bloodlust, meaning your windows of damage are better than most in your raid. Bloodlust ordinarily would be 40 seconds for everybody in the raid. You get an extra 10 seconds with Ancestral Resonance, as well as the proc chance for it is increased during your Bloodlust. Elemental Whirl is fine. It's not the best. In this tree, honestly, Blood Siphon's not much better, so having this is just the chance of high stats, and namely getting haste, is huge. This build still runs exactly the same. You want as many of this trait as possible. You need Natural Harmony. Natural Harmony literally kind of scapegoats and pushes your stats. So baseline, I've got 23, 23, and 30. So with each element, it goes up. So baseline, I'm at 27% crit and 27% haste, with nothing else really going. This one, it went higher there, only because of the quick navigation. Now, what makes this one kind of stronger It's this one's stronger if you have a trait called Thundarin's, and what that does is increases the titular thing for this spec's niche, which is Forceful Winds. With Thundarin's procs, you get a totem that spawns and increases your Wind Fury chance by double. So it brings up, like, whatever my Wind Fury chance should be by, like, 26%. Yeah, 26%. It would bring it to 52, so every other auto attack is going to basically give you multiple Wind Fury procs. With Forceful Winds, it gives you a lot of damage. Like, a lot of damage. The best way to proc it is in the spec, because with Ascendance you get Wind Strike. Thundarin's, it's 8% chance on each Storm Strike to proc that totem. So, with some RNG, you can get some incredibly high damage, incredibly high burst, especially during your Ascendant. For this rotation, it is a little bit different. You still lead about the same. You can lead with either of these openers, but you're going to use up your Stormbringer procs immediately and get your first Storm Strike on cooldown, and then you're going to pop Ascendant. With Ascendant, you get your reset plus the shorter CDs, and you're just going to hammer away Storm Strike as much as possible. I've honestly gotten some pretty bad procs here, so... honestly, your damage with this is going to vary. You'll sometimes be higher than the other build, but your lows are going to be much lower. Like, way astronomically lower. It's just not something I can personally recommend. I say grind out the Primal Primer stacks. The reason why some people say it's fine is it's lower maintenance, because you do have to, for this setup with Hot Hand and Primal Primer, you do have to pay more mind to your buffs, because keeping up Hailstorm is relatively important, and it is kind of annoying to keep in your rotation, so just bear that in mind. But the power ceiling on this one is quite good, because it just adds... Oh, or I can get parried. It just adds huge numbers like that, and that's like one of the low-end crits. Most of the time, once you've gotten some Mastery procs, you can get anywhere from a 70k crit to a 115. I'm not doing this with any flask or anything like that going on, so typically the simmed damage of this setup is about 26k, which is Mythic ready. So if you want to do Mythic raids, you do have the damage to do so. However, we are behind the more prominent spec, which is Elemental. Also, the fights are, for the most part in this game, have become very, very unfriendly to melee DPS. So to recommend Enhancement currently, I really can't, unfortunately. I love Enhancement Shamans, dude. I've played this class for forever, but to say that it's a lot of fun right now is definitely kind of a lie. We're very gutted. We don't have a lot of abilities, like... Even on some of the fights, like, they actually changed some of the effects to Horrifies instead of, like, Fears, so Tremor doesn't really have a lot of use. It was incredibly strong in Gahoon, but now in the current raids, it's not that useful. Capacitor Totem's really whatever. Wind Shear is probably one of the better interrupts in the game, so we have that going for us, and we are a Bloodlust, but we used to be a utility spec, and, like, we brought a lot to the table as far as, like, things that will impact in a different way, and now we just don't really have that. I will say this, the same deal with the spec, you still have some RNG. Elemental Spirits, now if you get the Frost Wolves, you probably suffer a DPS loss. If you get the Fire Wolves or the Lightning Wolves, you will get a DPS increase. But it also gives you a little bit of a shorter cooldown too, so you get more Feral Spirits than you will Ascendants in the majority of fights, and once again, Ascendant really is kind of RNG dependent, much like anything else in this class. Outside of that, things to kind of go over as far as playing this class in... I can't really talk about PvP because I just stopped after a few people had actually quit the game. This class used to be much better in PvP, but now we do have some crippling weaknesses by comparison to some other classes, especially in the melee slot. We lack very good invulnerabilities. Our defensive cooldown is in Astral Shift. It only reduces damage by 40% and for 8 seconds. In PvP, the buffed up version for that has a downside, so the PvP version is Ethereal Form. You're immune to all physical attacks, but your movement speed's slow, you can't cast spells, and you can't attack. It lasts for 15 seconds, which is longer than this, but a lot of caster classes in the game. And, yeah, it's kind of just, it feels bad. Also, our movement speed ability, Ghost Wolf, while really cool, classes that can dispel, it is a dispellable buff, therefore they can just take it off of you and you lose it, which is really unfortunate. Back in the day, it was not a dispellable buff, so kind of suffers on that. Mobility in boss fights. I'm currently running Nature's Guardian. That was only because of a mythic boss I was doing that kind of facilitates wanting the ability to stationarily not die randomly. But your choices are currently, I'd honestly say Windrush Totem is better than Feral Lunge. Feral Lunge is also very buggy. You can go back to the last expansion. You've got Kingarath. Kingarath would put you on the back of the boss, which is bad. So, and away from everybody where you wanted to stack. So, it's more of a PvP ability than anything else. Windrush Totem will typically help your group out more, as well as better Mythic Pluses for the most part. It'll let you kind of go through the instance faster and stuff like that. In Mythic Pluses, I will say Enhancement I personally think is better than Elemental because we are so bursty and because we are RNG damage, as well as we do bring a lot of CC in those dungeons as well. Having Sundering as a way to interrupt mobs is huge. You don't want to take any of these other traits. Fury of Air was niche usable with a few trinkets back in the previous raid tier, but now they're just the damage is just not there. Sundering can crit for a lot more, and it's incapacitate. Crashing Storm has never been good. It's still not good. They really need to do stuff to like kind of facilitate making these other choices better. Totem Mastery is consistent. Landslide is inconsistent, and so is Forceful Winds. That's why Totem Mastery with this build is typically better. It increases also Flatline, your Storm Strikes, plus your Lava Lashes damage by 10%, which is huge. Especially because it goes cumulatively with crits as well as the Hot Hand proc. So definitely make sure to use those. As far as the rest of the Azurite traits and like leveling as enhancement, I'd say level as enhancement over Elemental. You've got a lot of self-sustain, Earth Shield plus having instant cast healing surges because you don't really use your mana for a lot is probably the way to go. However, if you want to raid currently, I would say probably stick to Elemental. It will be more consistent. I've never personally enjoyed playing Elemental. Oh, as I get invited to a raid. I've never personally enjoyed Elemental, but the class has been fleshed out far more since Vanilla. You don't simply just have Lightning Bolt anymore or Chain Lightning. And now it's more based off its procs than anything else as well, but it leads to huge damage. Its cooldowns are absurd comparatively to Enhancement. But if you enjoy kind of like being a pseudo anti-mage, I can definitely still recommend Enhancement Shaman. We're not quite to where we used to be, but we're still pretty close. But that's about it, honestly, for this video. I will probably, at the end, I'll just kind of play possibly some clips from this raid that we're about to do. So, until then, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys are interested in WoW, think about playing the game. Also, leave down in the comments if you are excited for Classic. And if this video kind of helped you in any way, shape, or form. If you do have any questions, leave them down in the comments below, and I will continue to answer them and give you kind of more of an understanding of at least my career as an Enhancement Shaman, what I can recommend for you. The one thing I will say is don't be headstrong on this class. Wanting to do things your way is probably currently incorrect. You will do a lot less damage. And I've wanted to bite that bullet myself and say, no, there's no way I can play whatever I want. No. You will have to use specific traits if you want to do damage with this class. It is a lot more work for not too much of a gain, so bear that in mind. But yeah, guys, enjoy the rest of the video and the remainder of the clips. Bye-bye.